Hey guys, Justin here, or you can call me Moose. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I've got a review on the ISOTAC 3D printed airsoft grenade. Woo! Stay tuned. Alright guys, real quick before we get into the actual video, I would like to make a quick announcement, and that I actually have a Discord server. A lot of people don't know about it because I haven't been advertising it, so I'm going to now start advertising it. But I do have a Discord server. Link is in the description of this video and every one of my videos. Make sure to join the Discord. That way you can stay up to date on my videos, events, giveaways, all the other stuff I'm doing kind of behind the scenes or in person or whatever the case may be. It's also a good place you can ask questions and get live answers, because a lot of the times if you try to ask me a question on YouTube, I either don't see it, I don't get notified for it, or it takes forever for you to get notified for it, and it's just not a good way to communicate. So the best thing you can do is join the Discord server. Like I said, the link is in the description below. Alright guys, like you saw in the intro of this video, I'm going to be talking about the ISOTAC Thunderstrike V2 3D printed airsoft grenade. I know that's a mouthful, but I'm just going to call it the ISOTAC airsoft grenade. Makes it a lot easier on me. So, really quick, a couple of disclaimers is, first of all, that these need to be treated as airsoft replicas are. So what I mean by that is, for example, you're not going to take your airsoft replica into the mall, into a public town or public space, a public park. You're not taking it into a federal building. You're leaving it at home or taking it to the airsoft field, or at least you should be. Same thing with the airsoft grenades. You're not going to be taking these to those public places. You're not going to be holding it around, swinging it, waving it in the car where passerbys can see you, because same way with an airsoft replica, what's going to happen is someone's going to call 911, and then the cops are going to show up, and they have to take every situation as if it is a do or die situation, because if somebody calls, there's a guy with a gun, there's a guy with a grenade. They're going to have to treat it as such in order to protect them and everyone else around them in case it was a real threat. And so in other words, you're going to have SWAT at least probably on top of you because of a simple 3D printed airsoft grenade. So treat these with the respect that they deserve, and don't be throwing these around willy-nilly. So after that, I only got two more disclaimers, really short. The other disclaimer is that I will not be comparing these to any other 3D printed airsoft grenades. However, I will say that this is not a copycat or a clone of any other 3D airsoft grenade that I have seen. I have used the Fulcrum's Meteorite. I did use older designs, and I have looked at, but I have not made or tested the newer designs. But this is not a copycat or a clone of his or anyone else's that I have seen. In fact, the guy who contacted me about these from ISOTAC said that he's had inspiration from, but it's not a clone, and I can very easily see that because of the internal designs of these. The bodies, of course, are going to look similar throughout all the 3D airsoft grenades, similar to all 3D printed other parts for airsoft replicas, and that's just simply because they're trying to look like the real world thing, and so it's going to be similar in a lot of ways. And so apart from that, I only got one more disclaimer, and that is that this is somewhat of a sponsorship, somewhat not. I just have to make that known here from the get-go. No, the guy did not send me money to make a review and say good things about it. Instead, all he did was contact me and said, hey, can you do a review on this? We're trying to get this, business up and running. And so I told him from the get-go that I'm going to be blatantly honest. I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, no matter what. And he said he is absolutely okay with that. In fact, that's what he wants. And for me, I respect that. Also, this guy is out of, I believe, Utah, and so it's local to the U.S. Everything, kind of out of the U.S. We'll talk about production here in a minute, or after a while. At the end of the video, we'll be talking about production and how he's actually looking at making these even better for even cheaper. And I'll be talking about that at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. But the guy contacted me and said, hey, can you do the review? I said, sure. We agreed that it's going to be completely honest. I'm going to say everything that I think about it, honest opinion. But, so he did not send me a pre-made grenade. He sells these either pre-made or files that you can print off. So he just sent me some files. I printed them off. I put them together. I bought the springs to make them. I bought all the internals. He did send me some money as well as the files for that. Now, I still put a little bit of money into it that was not covered by the money he sent, and that's due to like filament and just some other minor costs and stuff like that. But in other words, I did not pay hardly anything for these because he covered a lot of the costs, and so I have to say that outright, that this is technically paid for. I did not spend all my money on this. And so with that said, I will go ahead and now get into the actual review of this product. Alright guys, with those disclaimers out of the way, I'm going to talk about a couple things in order. I'll leave the timestamps in the description as well as right below the video as always. I'm going to be talking about the grenade itself, how I think of it overall, but I'll also be talking about the price, the reliability, the durability, difficulty to make, ways to improve it, all that sort of stuff. But like I said, I'm going to be talking about everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I'm going to be talking about all the bad stuff, but just keep in mind, just because I say that there is bad stuff, that doesn't mean it's a bad product. Everything under the sun, somebody's going to have something bad to say about it. I'm just going to get the honest opinion of my opinion, as well as an honest review of the product itself, both objectively and subjectively. And so, first of all, I will say that with 3D printed products, the thing you do have to be keep in mind with is kind of like the durability and the strength of them and stuff. Now this is made out of PLA, but and that could mean something when it gets wet. I'll talk about that stuff when I get to the durability, because the first thing I would like to talk about is the price. So remember, I didn't have to pay hardly anything for these, but I will talk about the price real quick. So they do make these pre-made that you can then order from their website. All links to everything is going to be in the description. They do make pre-made version of these that they make in-house by hand, and then they can send to you. Now these are tested then at that point. They're kind of dialed in to where they kind of work great, work the way it's supposed to, and they do all those tests and stuff before they send it to you. And so you're going to get a pretty decent product doing that. However, it is, I believe, somewhere between $30 and $40. I don't think it's as high as 40, but it's around the $30 mark. And so about that price for a 3D printed product, I don't think I'd ever spend that much money on a 3D printed product that I'm going to be throwing outside, right? I will be talking about the durability and stuff about it, but I'm just saying, me personally, that's a lot of money for a 3D printed product. Now, if it was metal, you know, that's where you get like some of the other impact grenades out there that are $200, but they're full metal and can use primers and everything else. So I will be talking about that. Don't let that deter you just yet, because the price difference adds up over time. So it depends on how much you plan on using grenades. So for example, Thunder Bees are like some of the most famous ones out there. So for example, let's say you spent $30 on one of these, and you spent $25 for a Thunder Bee core. For the Thunder Bee core to then be used, you need to get CO2 cartridge and a shell. So that is roughly about $4. So meaning after the $25 initial, then every time you throw that, it is $4. So let's say you go to a field and you play all day, and let's say you only have one grenade and you only throw it, I don't know, let's say 6 times. That is $24 per throw, or per day, after the initial $25. So right there, that's $50 you spent for that one day. Then if you continue to throw it 6 times every day you go, that's $24 every single time. That adds up a lot. And so that is where something like a 3D printed grenade or some of the other impact grenades come in. And because these used for ammunition, either these 8-ring caps you can get at either a dollar store, like a Dollar Tree, or sometimes Walmart. Some Walmarts will have them, but you can also order them online. And then you can also use adult snaps as well. We'll be talking about using both of these here in a bit. But both of these, you're looking at maybe 15 to 25 cents every throw. These are significantly cheaper, because instead of $4 a throw, it's 25 cents. And so you're spending a whole lot less on throwing it than you are a Thunder Bee. So if you're planning on using it 6 times, 8 times, 20 times, whatever, these are a great option because you're not spending near as much money. So like I said though, we're going to be talking about the reliability and the durability of these as well. This is not a comparison video to other 3D printed grenades, but I will reference other types of grenades. Alright guys, I forgot to mention this, so this is after the fact here. The 3D printed grenades you can pre-order, or order pre-made ones that are about $30. However, you can also get the files for about $8 to $12 per pair, which means a body and a fuse and the spoon. Or you can get like these kind of individually and separate, all for that about $8 to $12 mark. And so it is significantly cheaper. If you were to make a grenade and get all the parts that you need and everything, for example, like the body spring and the body spoon come in packs, about $8 for like a pack of 10 or a pack of 20. And so you can make several of these. So what that means is if you divide it all out, these things are about less than $5 or less to make each one of these grenades. It kind of depends on the thickness of the filament or the infill that you use when you print them out. But if you are have your own 3D printer, these are a really, really good option because, like I said, they're less than $5 a throw. So if one happens to break or whatever the case may be, you can just have your dump pouch filled with these things and, you know, just go out there and have fun. But with that said, we'll go ahead and get right into the reliability. So we already talked about price-wise. $30 for a pre-made one, 25 cents per throw after that, as opposed to a Thunderbee, it's 25 bucks initially, and then $4 a throw after that. Now you can get grenades that are a lot more expensive, like $100 to $200 per grenade. However, they are either impact or some of them are on timed fuses that use percussion, or not percussion caps, like 209 primers that are a lot louder, but they are also a lot cheaper. They're like 10 cents a throw, but you're spending $100 for the initial grenade. So it all kind of depends on what your budget is now versus if you want to save and get something more expensive in the future. But I will say this, if you're looking for an impact grenade specifically, I would probably go with the 3D printed over an expensive one, and here's why, which moves right into reliability, because even the $200 impact grenades, depending on where you're at, will struggle to go off every time. So you're spending $200 and you're getting the same level of reliability. And my local field that I go to is mostly outdoors, so we have a ton of thick grass, sand, underbrush, tree limbs, all of this sort of stuff that will slow that grenade down and hit on a softer surface, making it where you almost have to throw it hard into the ground for it to go off. And this includes those $200 impact grenades. Now, if you're using a grenade in where it's supposed to be used, which is either a building or like an indoor field or something, a place where you would normally use a grenade. You're not throwing a grenade out in the woods because then you're never going to find it again. But I did print these to be orange so to help me find it. But you're mainly throwing it either into a building, into an enclosed space, throwing it around a corner of a building or something. Grenades are used to clear buildings more than they are to just suppressive fire in the middle of the woods, right? And so we do have a few buildings at my local field. We also went to a different field so I could test these out. I unfortunately do not have footage from that day, but I will be talking about that here towards the end of the video. So as far as reliability goes, I was struggling to kind of get this to go off in our sand and grass out here, like I said, in the woods. However, throwing this inside of buildings, it actually worked really, really well. And so I will show you a quick video of me using it in all these different locations, just so you guys can kind of also hear the sound, as well as kind of get a rough idea of the reliability. Alright guys, so as you kind of saw, it was struggling a little bit to go off in the softer areas, but sometimes like even in the gravel it would go off, but pretty much every time in the building it would go off. Now keep in mind, most of these grenades I have not put through the ringer a whole lot. So what I mean by that is if I was trying to make these more sensitive, I would kind of like use the mechanism a lot to try to get it to really slide off a lot easier, or get the mechanism loosened up to where then it's more sensitive. So these are really stiff because they're freshly made. They're not completely gone through the endurance, or not endurance test. It's not gone through the abuse that it needs to have loosened up enough to be a little bit more sensitive. So once I use them a little bit more, they will kind of loosen up and be a little bit better. I will talk about the mechanism here in a bit. Don't worry about that. I'm trying to get through just like the initial overview, and then I'll get down to the specifics. That way the people watching the video that just want to know about it can go ahead and leave. They don't have to stick for the nitty-gritty details. So the reliability, if you're using it like in a building where you're supposed to use a grenade, then they work probably 80-90% of the time, which is about as accurate as a Thunder Beam. However, once again, significantly cheaper. Alright guys, so we talked about the reliability, we've talked about the price, about the reliability. Now let's talk about the durability. So a lot of problems with 3D printed parts is they're not nearly as durable as like the metal parts. And so for example, like a Thunder Beam is made out of metal. They're a lot more durable than something like this that's 3D printed, so do keep that in mind. However, at most fields, you're not supposed to be throwing these with a good old overhand directly into a hard surface. If you're chucking this, you're usually a good distance away, but that's an outdoor field, which once again, why are you chucking a grenade that far in the first place? That's not what it's for. Instead, have a LMG gunner on that corner as you push up, get close to it, and then you pull the grenade out and use it when you're supposed to, which is around a building or around a tight corner. You can just toss it in, and most buildings or corners like that will have a hard surface like the wall of the building or the floor of the building for it to go off in. And so if you are using it properly like that, with like other underhands, or just kind of like a quick around the corner toss like that, these things will last a really long time. I will show you a video here real quick of my strength test where I put this thing to the limit by giving it a good overhand throw about less than 20 feet from a thick, I believe it's an old hickory tree. I don't remember exactly which tree it is out here, but it's a big old hardwood tree, and so I gave it a couple really good throws. It did break, and after about 3 throws, I'll let you kind of see what happens so you can kind of see how hard I threw it as well. As you can kind of see, I threw it way harder than what you would normally in a normal circumstance, but I also threw it directly into something extremely hard. If you're using one of these grenades like you're supposed to be using grenades at the airsoft field, it will last you a really good long time. The only thing that can go wrong with these, as far as that goes, is going to be that it is made of PLA filament, or some of the other PLA filaments, or 3D print filaments as well. Their problem is they don't do good if they get wet. They can get really mushy, and that really messes them up. That will mess up the mechanism. That will mess up everything about it. So if you are really worried about that because you're using it in a harsh, wet, humid environments, you can go over everything with a bit of filler primer paint. That's usually used for cars. It's not that expensive. That will just kind of fill everything in, like all the gaps, holes, kind of give it like a protective coating. But when you do that, you will have to go kind of wear out some of the paint in some of the spots like where the mechanism is at. You'll have to kind of wear out that paint for it to be able to work properly, but that will give it a nice protective layer against the elements. It's not a huge need in my opinion, especially if you're 3D printing these yourself, because once again, these are significantly cheaper than most things if you are printing it yourself. It's, like I said, less than $5 to print these things if you're doing it yourself. If you're ordering these, you may ask if they can do that in the order or something, or just, use this only in buildings and don't throw it in puddles. It shouldn't be that bad if it's just like a little humid outside and it's in your bag the majority of the time, right? But the durability of these things are really nice for what they are. These things are kind of heavy, so do be careful when you're throwing them. I personally like the flashbang body a little bit more than the N67 fragmentation body. But just because of how it feels, it's a little smaller. I don't know, I just kind of like it. I feel it's a little bit more sensitive as well. But both of these are really good options, and you can even kind of see the inside of this thing. I'll send some close-ups here so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. But as you can see, it's a really nice design for the internals as well. Thick walls with some nice infill lines as well. But so kind of going off from that, let's talk about the difficulty to make real quick before we get into the other stuff. the final bits of it, right? And so difficulty to make. So this is if you're 3D printing it yourself, not ordering it from him. You have to order all the parts. I'm not going to leave a link to all the parts, but I will leave a link to where you can get the grenade, where he, talks about the parts and stuff. I will leave a link to the springs I bought, though, because he told me about that kind of, not really after the fact, but those are the springs that he suggests using, and they worked great. So, like I said, this is not a comparison to other 3D printed grenades, but I have had some difficulty with 3D printed grenades in the past from putting them together, because I had to do a ton of sanding. I had to cut springs. It was just cut and stretch springs. It was a nightmare. Now, you wouldn't have to stretch a spring if you used the springs that they suggested, but I didn't have those handy, so I had to do my own thing. So once again, that's why I'm not comparing the two, because it's not a fair test, because I didn't make them the same way I made these. But when I did make these, I did not have to do hardly any sanding. There was only 2 spots I had to sand, and I'll tell you about those in a second. And that is like this fuse goes with each body, and it screws in really, really nice. Awesome. I love it. The only 2 spots I had to sand was for the quick change adapter and the main adapter, which once again, I'll show you the stuff here close up, but I'll also be talking about the mechanism here shortly. But as you can see, this little knob and the hole is a little tight of a squeeze, which is nice. It gives it strength, but I had to do a lot of sanding in order to be able to take it on and off. Some of these are actually stuck together because I didn't sand them enough, and so that was the main spot I actually had to do sanding, but it wasn't really that bad in all honesty. The other spot I had to sand was where the spoon is rubbing against the fuse head, for the spoon to be able to fly off with the spring a lot easier. That way it can actually just fly instead of getting caught. But that was just a little bit of sanding, and didn't take that much at all. So overall difficulty to make, it's printing it, taking off the supports, and just doing minor sanding in a few places. It isn't that bad at all. And after that, they work really nice. You may have to play around with some print settings for different printers, which that's just the story with all 3D printing stuff. But I didn't have to do that. I followed the directions that he gave, and it worked great. And so now that out of the way, I've talked about kind of like the initial overview. Before I talk about my personal thoughts on the matter of like the grenade as a whole, let me tell you the cons I have. So like everything, there is going to be a con of some sorts. And so don't think just because there's cons that, oh, you shouldn't get this one at all, and so I'm going to go with something else, or whatever the case may be. Everything's going to have a con, and I'm here to talk about it, because like I said, this is an honest review. So my con with for example, the first off is the pre-made version being the 30 to 40 bucks. Like I said, there's not really much that they can change on that, because that price is due to having to make the stuff, design the stuff, and all that stuff to make it in-house. Testing all that stuff takes a lot of time and work. And so that price, if you think about all those steps, isn't that unreasonable. However, just for me as a player, I can't see myself spending $30 for a 3D printed product that I'm going to be throwing around. Now, $30 for some other 3D printed product or something, I also still don't know. It depends on what it is, because 3D prints usually all have their different variations. But like I said, they test it, they make sure it works. So if you don't have a 3D printer, it's still a reasonable option. But it's just saying, personally, I feel that price is a little high for me. However, I will be talking about an option that they are in the works, or planning on making here in just a moment. I'm saving it for the very last because it's really awesome. But the other con I would have is that quick change detonator sanding. I did have to do a lot, and I feel like if they made the diameter of that a little smaller, or the diameter of that quick change a little bit bigger, then that might solve that issue. Personally, that was like my biggest problem with it. But other than that, it would be kind of like the sensitivity of it. I don't feel like they're the most sensitive. However, like I said, I didn't wear these out enough to where they would be more sensitive. But still, I feel like they could be a little bit more sensitive. But once again, if you use it where they're supposed to be, I didn't have too many problems throwing it in a hard surface. And so it should be pretty fine for the most part. The durability is, once again, it's great for if you use it the way you're supposed to. If you overdo it too many times, it will kind of break on you. And so with all that said, that's really my only downsides to these. I loved how simple it was to print them and put them together. I didn't have to do a ton amount of sanding. The only sanding I really had to do was for, you know, the spoons and the adapter part, but that was it. I didn't have to stretch springs. These springs that I ordered were the perfect size. The quick change, the catch is awesome. I love it. And so, as far as making it, it is really simple, and that's my favorite part about it, is that it's so simple to do, and I love these quick change things. They're strong, they're durable. I've had problems with other designs before that these little knobs would break, and so, I love it for that. Now, another con I would have is, that, it's not really their fault. It's going to be the, ring caps, is that they're not as loud, and sometimes they don't all go off. But once again, kind of using it a couple times to kind of wear it out to where that will kind of fix that problem. Bank snaps are great, but you are going to have to do something to keep them in there because they are prone to falling out. Whether it's taking a very, very thin string of some sorts and tying together on one end, or some double stick tape or something you can put on there. There's some different creative ways you can go about keeping these in here, but these are the loudest option, and just fell on the floor. But these are the loudest option. In my opinion, the best option, but these are also significantly cheaper and easier to find half the time. But honestly, not that bad. And so, my overview with it entirely is I really like it. I personally don't use grenades too many times because of my field's layout. There's not too many places for me to use it. But if I had more buildings and stuff where I'm using grenades a lot more often, then this is a really great option for me. The only downside is it's not as loud as some of the other, like a Thunder Bee, but the price difference makes up for that, because if I'm able to throw a whole bunch of these in there with the loud cap, or the loud adult snaps, because these are pretty loud. They're loud enough for Airsoft. I'm throwing one of these in there and it either doesn't go off or for whatever reason, I can just start chucking more down there, because for the same price of having like 4 Thunder Bees on me ready to go at all times, I can be having like 50 of these things ready to go. And having it so cheap to throw, so even if it does go off like it's supposed to, I can easily just pick it back up, swap out a quick change adapter thing, and I'm good to go. I don't have to worry about unscrewing a ton of weird stuff, and it's great for that. Like I said though, my only cons that I can really find for the most part is the sensitivity, the sanding that I had to do for the quick change adapter thing, but these are all things that can be, you know, fixed by doing a little bit more of wear and tear on it, as well as every 3D printer is going to be a little bit different, so you are going to have to do some sanding at some point. They're not all going to fit perfectly, and so that is really it. So as far as that goes, it's pretty awesome. Now real quick, I did use these for a game. I don't have any footage from that day. I apologize, I forgot my SD cards at home, and the field that we went to was about 2 hours away, so I did not get any footage. I was also a sniper that day, which was my first time doing it. It was a lot of fun. I'll be talking about that in another video. But there was one opportunity I had to use this that it worked really well. There was other times, but it was raining that day, so everything was muddy, mushy. A lot of times when I tried to throw it, it was outdoors in an outdoor area, so it didn't really go off. But that's not the fault of the grenade. That's because of the environment that I was in was not really suited for it, like I said. However, there was this one time, so once again, I'm a sniper. I had me and a couple guys with me as kind of like a small little recon team, and I was laying down prone in a bus. The back door of the bus was flung open, and I created myself a little hide there with my barrel, and I was a little, a couple feet behind it. And I'm staring out a direction that is open, that the enemy would be coming through and going to an objective that the rest of our team were protecting. So we're kind of there to take them out before they get there. And so I'm sitting there like that. I'm engaging targets. I'll tell more about this story in a different video. But essentially, my guys behind me started to get taken out from guys in the woods. So the opening was in front of me. There's guys in the woods coming in through the main door of the bus. My guys were being taken out. They did not know I was there because I've been laying prone the whole time. So when they come in to start clearing the bus, I had one of these grenades on me and I threw it, and it beautifully blew up. It was loud, it was distinct, and the guy knew he was done for. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough in my pocket because I only had, I think, 2 at the time. And before I could get the other one out, or I had another one that I tried to throw outside the window, but it didn't go off because, like I said, the environment, I was throwing it outside in the mud, with a bunch of leaves in the woods and the underbrush and everything. So that one didn't go off. But that other one did go off, and I only had 2 in my pouch at the time. And so about that time, another guy comes in, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm hit. And so it worked really well when, once again, I used it in the proper situation, in the proper location. Other than that, I got one last thing to share, and this is from the guy, my contact with ISOTAC, about an updated version of their grenade. I would like to share a message from my contact. No, this is not a sheet that I'm supposed to be reading to make sales. No, that's not what I do. I promise you, if you ever catch me doing that, please call me out for it. I don't want to be that guy. I will rarely accept any sort of sponsorships. I am open up to sponsorships. If you want to if you want to sponsor me and me try to promote your stuff, I'm all for that. Except I will be honest at all times. If it's not going to work, I'm not going to use it, because then I'm wasting my time, and I'm not going to waste my time. And so I'm not going to be supporting a product that I don't trust in. And so this product I do like, and I can see myself using it, and I will probably be using these. And so I will be talking a little bit more about that in this video. But with that said, I have a quick message from the guy. When I asked him, I said, okay, so what is some information about it that you can give me about, like, you're selling it, your plans with it? And this is what he said. He said, so this is coming from my contact. He said, yeah, so currently we just sell the 3D print files, but what we are going to do is manufacture them out of high-strength plastic that will last longer and be slightly more sensitive. Due to the process, it will let us keep it at a low price. The low price is cheaper, a lot cheaper than the pre-made one that he already has, by the way. I don't think he wants me to reveal that price just yet, because they're not done with that process, but it's in the works, and it's close to being done from what I've heard. But you can check their website and stuff for more updates on that. But he said, we're going to give out some pre-sales this September to October, and we'll have the grenades ready to ship by December through January. And so that's our target goal. Once again, this is a bunch of individuals would be like me trying to start my own 3D business with these things. Now, I'm not, I don't do a ton of 3D design, even though I do a ton of work with 3D print products. I don't do a ton of the actual design. I just haven't done it. And so if these guys are essentially just a group of guys out of, I believe, Utah that are doing this together and trying to make a business out of it. And so with that in mind, some things can be delayed. Life happens. They're not a giant corporation, LLC, whatever, that already has a ton of money and people backing them. This is a group of guys trying to get something started. And he said, our first batch will be made by a small company in China, but I myself actually recently got a job at a plastics, I'm not going to say the name of it, but at a plastics, essentially a warehouse thing in Utah, where we will relocate if we can sell enough to afford to move it stateside. Once we do, all of it will be made, assembled in the USA. So what that means is that if they can get enough of the pre-sales done from that, using that company in China, he will then hopefully be able to then have enough that they can then look at doing it at the place he's going to be working at, to be able to have it all done right here in the US, and that is amazing. He also said, that side note, that he's doing something with some people in Austria to be able to have stuff that they can distribute in Europe as well. However, more details on that, you can talk to him. I'm not big into all those details, but in other words, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be manufacturing some harder plastic versions of these that are also made out of factory, so they're all going to be pretty much the same quality. What that means is that the manufactured ones are going to be a little bit more durable and possibly a little bit more sensitive. Once again, I cannot guarantee any of this. This is just what he's told me. And that it will also be cheaper than the pre-made ones. And so if you do not have a 3D printer, this could be a really good option for you. But if you do have a 3D printer, the 3D printed ones are fine, because it's only about $5 every time you make one of these things. So if you happen to lose, break, or whatever the case may be, it's extremely cheap to just make a new one. And how simply these things are put together with minor sanding and possibly one small change, then there would be no sanding except for just a tiny bit for the spoon, but is what it is. You're always going to have to do that because of the 3D print stuff. But as quick as they are to assemble, I can have several of these done really quick, really easy, and it's awesome. So I can have some for me and my whole squad and call it good, and it would be amazing. And so my overall review of the whole thing is I really like the design. I really like the durability. The reliability is that my own kind of a small concern, but that's mainly because most of the fields I'm at is outdoors, and grenades are not really meant to be used outdoors near as much as they are for clearing buildings. If I was at a field that had more buildings, definitely would be bringing several of these, because I can have a lot more of these on me because they're smaller and lighter than a Thunder Bee. So I have a grenade pouch that I just recently took off before I got these things made, because my Thunder Bees would not fit in them. And so I've been just carrying my Thunder Bees in an admin pouch or in my dump pouch. Well, now I can have that grenade pouch, I can put it back on, and I can fit probably 2 of these in each slot. So I can have 6, because it's got 3 slots. I can have 6 of these right here on me, and it would not be bogging me down too much, because these things are not that heavy. And if I use the smaller one, I may even be able to get even more of them in there. And once again, it's really, really light and really cheap to throw. And so I can just be pulling these things out, throwing them all over the place, not caring about it too much. I can go looking for them to find them. But if I don't find one because I threw it and it rolled away somewhere or something, or somebody stole it or whatever, no big deal. I can just reprint it for $5. And so if you do have a 3D printer already and know how to work with 3D printed stuff, this is an amazing option. And honestly, I am probably going to start using these a little bit more, but I'm not usually in a position where I'm using grenades as much, and if I am, it's in the woods, to where impact grenades are not really the best to use. And so that's no fault to the ISOTAC grenades. That is due to just where I play at, and impact grenades in general aren't going to really be best for that environment. And so with that said, guys, that's going to be it. If you have any questions about the ISOTAC grenade, you can shoot me a message on Discord, or you can let me know in the comments. I can try to answer them, but the best place you can go is down in the description. I have a link to the guy's website, as well as his Cults 3D page for the 3D print files. He's got some other stuff on there, not just these grenades. He's got some different body styles and everything. But you can also stay up to date on his designs and stuff like that. With that said, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. See ya. And so as you can see here, if I just take out the fuse head, this has 2 parts here. This is going to have the quick change detonator base, where I can easily just replace it with a new quick change base that has caps on it, or if I'm using the adult snaps, I can just leave this on here. And then I can screw this off and put the new one on. And then you can see here, this is how it actually works, is I put on a new cartridge, and then I push this spring in and I twist it. I twist it clockwise, excuse me, and you can see this catches on this shelf. Make sure that's in focus. Yeah, and so then it catches on this little shelf, and then what happens is when I throw this and hit something hard enough, that shelf, that catch is gonna fall off that shelf, releasing the spring. And then releasing the spring hard enough for this thing to then slide, for it to hit whatever ammunition you're using and for it to go off.